Hey y'all, Chef Chad here, and even though it doesn't feel like it outside, it is springtime in the Midwest. And when it turns to spring, we all get very excited because not only does it mean that winter is over and we can finally go play outside, but it also means that our springtime vegetables will be popping up soon. One of the surefire signs that springtime has arrived in the Midwest is that you start to see ramps in your specialty grocery stores and restaurants. As chefs, we go crazy over this spicy little alum that is related to the leek. The bad thing, though, is that they don't last very long. They pretty much go away just as soon as they came. So what we're going to talk about today is how to preserve your springtime vegetables, what to do with your ramps so you can enjoy them all summer long. So with that in mind, we're going to be doing some pickling today. We're going to pickle these ramps, we're going to pickle the bulbs, and then we're going to take the leaves because we want to keep the whole product. We want to use the whole product. So we're going to take those leaves and we're going to make that into a ramp butter, which is something that you can put into your freezer and then you can just take it out and use it as you need. Okay, so starting with ramps, the first thing we need to do is clean these guys. If you don't like to clean vegetables, then springtime vegetables are not your thing because they are always dirty. Cleaning them, though, is pretty low tech. All you need is a piece of paper towel and a cutting board or just any flat surface, and you just take this paper towel and you can just rub that dirt right off. And if it's getting a little bit more difficult, you can always use the old thumbnail here and just peel that off. Since this is an alum, like an onion, it does have layers. So now that we've got our ramps all cleaned, we need to separate the leaves from the actual bulbs, as we are only pickling the bulbs. So again, pretty easy to do. Just want to kind of get them all grouped together here so that you're getting all of the stems and all of the leaves. A thing about ramps while we're doing this is that ramps are found in the wild all through Illinois. If they grow in nice big patches, so if you know where to find them, you can go out foraging for them. Might be a fun activity. If you don't know where to find them, or if that's just not your thing, and you have good friends like I do at Spence Farms, then they might be kind enough to go ahead and forage those guys for you. All right. Choosing your pickling spice. I always like to start with with three basic components. That is coriander, mustard seed, and juniper berries. You start with those three guys and you're going to get some really good fresh flavors. You're going to get a little bit of heat and some real umami flavors from those juniper berries. The next spices you choose is all up to you. I always like to go with something that's going to complement what I'm pickling. Ramps are very earthy, they're very fresh, so I want things that are going to complement that. So I've got some star anise, I have some cardamom, I'm going to throw a bit of ginger in there for a little freshness, and then I want just a bit more heat coming into that too, so I'm going to have some red pepper flake. Now let's move on to choosing our vinegars. When it comes to choosing vinegar, you want to choose something that has a very high acidity point. White vinegar comes in at around 7%, but if you use that, it could make your pickles taste like Easter eggs, and I don't really care for that too much. I like to go with a apple cider vinegar. It has an acidity of around 5%. It's nice and strong, and it has real good flavors in it too. You know, it's not too upfront. It's got a lot of fruit to it, so I really enjoy that. We're not going to go with just straight vinegar, though. You absolutely can if you're going to do more of a cold pickle. I would recommend that, but since we're going to be cooking our pickle, we're going to need to cut it. So that brings in your sugar and your water, and your choice of whether you want a sweet or a sour pickle. I myself like my pickles a bit sweeter, so I'm going to do a ratio of 2 parts vinegar to 1 part sugar to 1 part water, and just about a pinch of salt, maybe a tablespoon at the absolute most. Now, when it comes to the actual canning of your pickled product, there's two things you can do. There's what's called a quick pickle, in which you take your brine, pour it over your product, put it in the jar, and then stick it right into the fridge. Now that'll keep for about 3 or 4 months, but it's not really shelf stable. To do that, you're going to need to process your jars. Now I've got a pot full of boiling water. I've got a pan that's simmering away here, and in this pot I have my ball jar completely covered, as well as the rings. In the pan is the lid parts. Now you'll see that the lids have got a bit of a film on them. This part you don't want to boil. That's why they're separate from the jars and the lids. Because if this starts to boil, it could react, it could start to melt, and then you're not going to get the seal that you would normally get on your jars, okay? So, these have been boiling for about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is perfectly fine for 16-ounce jars. If you're going to do a quart jar, a 32-ounce jar, you want to go 15 minutes, all right? So, we've got them in. We're going to put them in the oven now to keep them dry. This oven is at 180 degrees. That's kind of the lowest setting for the oven. We're going to put them in there because bacteria can't live in a place that is 140 degrees or higher. So this is a sterilized environment, for better or for worse. So let's go ahead and put these in the oven. Okay, all that boring stuff is out of the way, and it is action time. I've got my pickling pot here on a medium-low heat because we're going to toast our spices. Now, when you're toasting your spices, this happens very, very quickly. Don't walk away from the pot. Don't underestimate how quickly these go up, because these oils that are going to be released here go like that, and then they can burn, and if they're burned, you're done, and you've wasted several dollars in spices, which isn't any kind of fun. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to pour them right on into the pot here, and we're just going to give them a little shake and just kind of let the heat do its thing. Now, how do you tell when they're toasted? Now, I've had a chef tell me before that the minute you can smell them, they're burnt. Well, that's not really good advice. So what I like to do is just kind of stick my face in here and just give it get a little waft. Now I can smell them. They're super fragrant. They smell great. So I'm going to take my salt and my sugar mixture, and I'm going to pour that in. And I just want to briefly stir this. I want to get this sugar just to open up a little bit along with the spices. Get that liquid that's inside there to start seeping out a little. Get it a little toasted, all right? Next thing we're going to do is add our water in, and we're just going to keep on stirring here. All right, get that water nice and dissolved. And then finally, our vinegar is going into the pot. All right, so just give that a stir, let that dissolve, and then we're gonna bring this heat up a little bit, okay? Because we wanna get this boiling. Now, when it comes to boiling your brine, you need to pay very close attention to what the instructions say, what the recipe says for how long it should boil. Acid dissolves faster than water does, so you don't want to overboil it. You'll reduce the acidity level and screw up the pH balance. So let's give it 5 minutes to boil after it's come up, and then we will pour it directly over our pickles. Looks like about 5 minutes is up, so let's head back over to the table. All right, back from the stove. I have taken the jars and the lids and the rings out of the oven, left them in there for as long as I was cooking. So I've got those out. I put the ramps in the sterilized jar, and now it's time to pour our brine over it. So for this, I'm going to use a funnel. If you have very, very steady hands and you trust that you're not going to spill things all over your countertop, please freehand it. I'm a bit of a klutz, so I'm going to use a funnel. We're going to pour this directly over with it still steaming, still nice and hot. Now, while we're filling this, we really only want to get it to just about the base of that jar, just the base of the lip. The reason for that is because I want this steam to stay to stay right where it is, so when I put my lid on, I'm going to create a vacuum, and that's what's going to help it stay nice and sealed. Alrighty, so the pickling is happening as we speak. We can't go into them right now, though. We've got to wait about 48 hours. That's a good time to hold off before you get into your pickles. But if you don't want to wait, or if you do want to wait longer, you can always just throw them in the shelf. These are preserved. They're ready for you whenever you want. So enjoy your pickling, but wait, we're not done yet. There's more to be had. You didn't forget about the butter, did you? Of course you didn't. Ramp butter, something that is a great thing to have sitting around. Any compound butter, really. Very easy to do. You just need a few ingredients, and you can wrap it up and put it in your freezer, and that way you've always got a little something you can break out and impress some dinner guests, or just spice up a weekday dinner. All right, let's get started. I have here some tempered butter. So what that means is I've left this out for several hours so it gets nice and soft. You want a soft butter when you're going to be spinning it for compound butters, because if you wait for that cold butter to break down, it's just going to, it's not really going to happen. You're just going to keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. So sit your butter out for a little while, and then you can just put it right on into your food processor like so. Okay. And we'll just kind of smush it down in there, get our lid on, and then we're going to start spinning it. So now that our butter is spun, it's time to add our ramps. I'm just going to, ramp leaves. I'm just going to put them in a little bit at a time. You don't want to shear them up too much. You don't want to get them too bruised. You want them to stay nice and green and just let that oil come out naturally and really flavor your butter. So we'll just take a little sprinkle of salt in there just to kind of open her up a little bit. And you can just take your spatula then and fold that back together. All right, just fold that salt in like that. Okay, so we've got this on our wax paper. So now we're going to form it, and that's so easy to do. You literally just fold your paper over like so, and then you can just pat it down, get it to whatever shape you want. I like a square. And just start to pat it down and form it, all right? And then once you're happy with that, you can take a piece of plastic wrap and just wrap it right on top so that it will stay nice and protected in your freezer, all right? So now that that's ready to go, it's ready to be frozen. Your ramps are ready to go into your cupboard for a later time. And that is preserving spring vegetables. I'm Chef Chad. Thank you so much for watching this, and happy cooking.